Encouraging development of visual spatial skills in young children, bridging the gender divide. This content was originally facilitated and filmed during EQUIP's very first community learning event held on November 1st, 2014 at GTCC in Jamestown, North Carolina. At the time of filming, Heidi Hollingsworth was the Assistant Professor of Education and Coordinator for the Early Childhood Program at Elon University. Jenny Gilder was Senior Research Student, also at Elon University. Hi, this is Nicole McCaskill, Community Learning Coordinator for EQUIP'd. Thank you for participating in the upcoming recorded content. At the end of the session, you will click a link to complete an evaluation. The evaluation allows you to receive a DCD-EE training certificate. You will be asked to agree to an online learning honor code during the evaluation process.
We're going to talk about spatial visualization and imagery first, and then block building second, and then spatial orientation third. And teaching spatial skills is one of the things that is recommended for encouraging girls in math and science. So I don't know, it's probably quite small there. But it's teaching spatial skills. This is from the United States Doing What Works, the United States Department of Education Doing What Works website. They have other things like female role models and let's see, sparking curiosity, but teaching spatial skills is one of the things for encouraging girls. So our first of our three sections is spatial visualization and imagery. So these are the processes that are involved in mentally manipulating images. I should probably not wave this around, but so if you look at those images on the screen, if you can see them, can you tell which A, B, or C matches the one on top?
Yes.
B?
Yes.
Okay, so this kind of skill is an important skill for engineering kinds of fields. So being able to visualize and kind of move things around, that would be an adult task, an adult mental rotation task. But ways to promote this in kids is to use things like tangrams, blocks, puzzles. I have a couple slides to show how you can do slides, flips, and turns with the human body, and so it's a kind of a physical activity. And the research shows that the earlier the instruction in these kinds of things, the better for kids. So, you know, maybe for a young child you would say, can you build a house like mine? And that kind of task that gets them working with shapes, moving shapes around and handling them. And those are important for engineering types of fields. Here's a way that you can do slides, flips, and turns. Slide, flip, or turn. Turn. Slide, flip, or turn. Flip. Slide, flip, or turn. Turn. I would say turn. Slide, flip, or turn. I would say slide on that one. And actually starting her at the top of the mat and then moving her down farther, that might seem more intuitive to kids as far as what a slide looks like. So that was spatial orientation spatial visualization and imagery. So I'm going to pause for a minute now. I'd like you to talk to the people near to you or turn around or close to you. What are you already doing? What are some other good ideas for thinking about this visualization and moving from like a hands-on manipulation of things like tangrams and blocks to having them do a little bit of it, in their minds? What are you doing already? What works? And I'm going to be quiet. Yeah, do you have any more handouts? Thanks.
It's okay, turn your words. It's all right. We're a little spaced out.
It's late in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally spaced out.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, physically.
What was the question?
What do you do already that works well? What ideas do you already have for this spatial visualization of shapes and moving shapes around? Slides, flips, and turns. I just don't know if the people on this side can see past the table. Do you need another handout? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but I think...
They can inspire us. Just look it out. This is what this community is.
Awesome. Any great ideas that you'd like to share with the group? Let's kind of pull our conversations to a close and maybe share with the group.
I put like painter's tape on the floor because we do letters, and we would roll on the letter. We did not necessarily slide on our backs, but we had winter games, and we made an ice skating rink on the floor part of our classroom, and we did hockey.
Okay, so you did a lot of physical activity around, movements and shapes. Did you have them go in certain, make certain shapes with their bodies? And they're going around and around?
Yeah, and then we used to outline we did one time outline, just made a, I think they ended up being a rectangle and not a square that the kids helped make, and they wanted to stand on that, and then everybody could tell somebody what to do on that shape. And we tried to make letters out of our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. Other ideas?
I had an interesting idea from over here, sensory box. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, upstairs we took the math and science course, and she was showing us how you could take a shoebox and put the shape in it and let the kids drop it in the box. And she said as they get older, do like a circle, square, do all the shapes and let them see if it fits in the box, if it's too small, too big.
So they fit it in a hole that's cut that shape? Another thing you can do to draw attention to the features of shapes for kids is to put them in the feely box where they can't see them, but they have to feel it. Does it have straight edges? Does it have curved edges? Yeah. How many of y'all know the game Minecraft?
Oh boy.
Anybody have kids?
Oh boy.
So, I have lots of opinions about screen time for young kids, but Minecraft is, I think, building some of these engineering types of thinking because they're building things and they're having to visualize. I'm going to put a cube here, but not here. Let me delete that one. Let me break that one. Let me put another one here. I'm going to go 3 up on this side, and I'm going to go 2 up on this side, and then I'll have stairs. I think there are good parts to that game, but not all day long. Other questions, comments, thoughts? Let's move on to block building. So block building in preschool predicts high school math achievement. We know that there are differences in math scores between boys and girls later in life, but there are also some differences between girls and boys in spatial skills. And I think there may be a number of reasons for that. One of which might be that they don't have equal experiences and opportunities, boys and girls, to do some of the important spatial kinds of tasks. So some of the issues are that usually blocks are a free play thing. We don't often plan a lot of lessons around blocks for kids. And that, let's see, there will be some girls who think of blocks as boy toys, and some boys who think of blocks as boy toys, and some parents who think of blocks as boy toys and not necessarily girls. Have you seen all the pink and purple Legos out lately, the Lego Friends Legos? Yeah. Lego has tried and tried and tried to appeal to girls. I don't know if pink and purple is the way to do it, but they have got the boys, loyal, but girls not yet. So there are differences between boys and girls in terms of their interest, the style of their structure, and the complexity of their structures with block building. So what we know from the research is that girls don't necessarily prefer blocks during free play, whereas boys like blocks just as much as they like other things. Boys are more likely to build towers, and girls are more likely to build enclosures. So I asked my 3 kids, 2 girls and 1 boy, can you tell which one was the boy one? The tall one, the tall tower, and the other 2 were enclosures, and they were like, a hotel, or so they had a story going with it. But and then the third thing is complexity. So boys tend to build not just towers, but also structures that are more complex. So they might have 2 things standing up and have an arch on top of it, or a floor on top of it, and then another thing. So when they're doing these things, they're estimating the distance the block is going to cover. They're doing some of those engineering type tasks with the blocks. And so if girls are not engaging with blocks and doing some of these more complex structures, they're not getting that same experience that boys are getting. So complexity is having to do with more 3D, more symbolism, more internal spaces covered by roofs instead of just a fence, just an enclosure. But what they found in the research is that actually boys and girls have pretty similar block building styles if they're given equitable quality time with blocks, so if they both spend the time. So it's not that they can't do it. So how do we promote some of these skills, some of these block building skills that we know are really important for engineering types of fields? So some ideas are to do lesson plans for block building. So to think about, the first day encouraging everybody to build enclosures if that's where they want to start, or to build one story. The next day, encourage them to add a second story to their structure, maybe a roof, and on top of that a second story. And this is particularly for kids who aren't building already a lot. So there are some kids who will build towers and arches and bridges and ramps and stairs without any prompting at all. But for the kids who aren't doing that, we can make it part of our intentional instruction. And it's fine for them to rebuild the same structure over and over, and then maybe encourage them to add a little more complexity to it. And that's an example of a sequence. So if they want to do an enclosure, a fence, have some farm animals or whatever, that's fine, and then encourage them to make the fence taller. Like you have a giraffe, you need a taller fence. Add another layer to it. Add ramps and stairs after arches and bridges, and encourage towers too. Having younger kids observe older kids with the blocks can also help to push them to, some more complex work with the blocks. So I'm going to be quiet again and let you all talk about what you might do to sequence and to provide some scaffolding for leading kids towards more complex block structures. And I'll let you talk to the people around you. So if you could wrap up in about a half a minute what your last thought is about that for now. Any great ideas that you'd like to share from your smaller group conversations?
She said to add pictures, these are different towers, buildings, houses, and stuff in Clark area too.
So to show pictures of towers and interesting constructions, great idea. Yeah.
And following along that is take photos of what the kids actually build. They are
Egocentric. They
Yeah.
like to see pictures of their stuff so that will encourage more
Yes.
to come in and build them have their pictures up.
Yes. And then, you can say, well, would you like, if they're kind of stuck, would you like to build one like this one that such and such built last week? Or yeah.
I like that idea because it shows appreciation
Yes.
for the children's work as well.
Absolutely. Other great ideas.
You could put books around, and like the drawings that they make.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, share your idea.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The vocabulary.
Well, I teach thematically, and so I teach in Spanish. So I'm trying to help them develop their Spanish. Being introduced to different things like a house, a tower, a castle.
Yes.
So we talked about these different things, and they had pictures, and then I gave them all the building materials we have accessible in the classroom. Build one of these structures specifically. Use the Legos or the Duplos or the Tinker Toys or the cardboard blocks or the wooden blocks, whatever. And everybody kind of got to choose which material they're going to work with, and then work on building something specific based on what our lesson was and our vocabulary for that theme.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. So vocabulary can be tied in. And we're kind of concentrating on the visual spatial skill piece of it. But of course, with blocks, you can be thinking about the cognitive skill of seriation. So you might tell them to use the biggest block as the base of their tower. What's the next smallest, the next smallest, the next smallest, and you've got seriation. You can be doing the sum of two parts makes a whole math skill when you have two square blocks that are actually the same length as the rectangular one if you've run out of rectangular blocks. So there are lots of other things to bring into this. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to talk about the next thing.
Okay, we're going to talk about spatial orientation. So spatial orientation is knowing where you are in the world in relation to the objects around you and how to get around. So by preschool, many children are able to build and interpret simple maps. And then by age 5, many can point to their own position in a map or a maze.
Especially if they've had some experience with the maps.
So this is a typical map that a child can make. They show where they are in location to the objects around them.
This is an elementary age, so yes. Yes. But this is where you'd like them to be able to get to. Yeah.
So promoting spatial orientation, we want to use our language, as we were saying, spatial vocabulary, and talk about landmarks and spatial relationships and spatial movements, and to help children pose questions focusing on direction, such as which way or distance, how far, location, where, and what, identification. And so we want to describe where an object is in relation to us, and using our vocabulary, we can also allow them to use their vocabulary and find a hidden object and sort of have them figure out where it is in relation to them and how to find the object. So this is a video clip. Spatial vocabulary tends to be learned in this order. So a child at first will learn in, on, under, up, and down. And next, their vocabulary will increase to beside and between. And last, they'll learn in front of and behind.
And then even after that are things like right and left. And even after that, north, west, east, south. Some of them are complex. Yeah.
So it's important to encourage children to explore their environment, both in a natural learning environment setting as well as the classroom setting. We want to make connections between maps and the real world. So we can use objects and materials and models, and then use oblique maps before moving on to the bird's eye view maps.
Do you know what oblique maps are?
I don't.
So oblique maps, sorry to interrupt, oblique maps are where it has a little bit of 3D-ness to it. So the cover slide, let's see. Do you see how you can see like a little bit under the horses in the slide? So it might if you have a table in an oblique map, you might be able to see the legs a little bit. It's not a total bird's eye view. So it helps them to get to the point of understanding a bird's eye view a little better.
And then lastly, we move on to the geometrical symbols map where you have an airplane representing airports. And so that would be the last step that we move on to. So as I said, it's important to promote learning both in outdoor activities and indoor activities. So one activity that's been supported by a majority of research is scavenger hunts. And this allows a child to truly explore their environment outside, increase their spatial knowledge through movement. And so it's important to use a stimuli-rich environment, which is a park, community garden, hiking trail. And we're also very interested in keeping these activities cost sensitive. So we would like to use areas that a child naturally plays in and activities that do not include many supplies. So in this scavenger hunt activity, you can use movements by creating clues that involve finding a destination and using certain movements to get there. Such as one clue would say, skip over to the blue slide. And then once you got to the blue slide, you pick up another clue that said, now hop over to the tree. And at the end, you want the child to actually create their own clue so that they can integrate this knowledge into their own world. And so the final clue, you'd say, why don't you create a movement? And they can say, okay, I'm going to twirl until I get to the tree house. And so that allows them to integrate the knowledge they've learned and integrate the vocab. And so then for prize ideas, again, we want to do cost-sensitive ideas. So we were hoping to allow for more socialization and bonding. So we create activities such as extra story time or outdoor swing time that allows more social connections and bonding.
I'm going to interrupt you again real quick, Jenna. So there is some research to show that families will allow boys to go explore in the neighborhood, go play wherever, but they'll require girls to stay in the backyard, for example, which I can understand of being a safety concern maybe, but what's happening is boys are getting this more intensive experience of the world, of distances, of spatial landmarks, and girls are getting less of that, if that's the case. So we want to really try to work on things within the environment that we have. It may be a small playground or a small backyard, and if there's no outdoor space close by, you can do these scavenger hunts inside as well. But there is some research to show there are different experiences that boys and girls are having as far as how far they're allowed to explore.
Exactly, so it's very important that for these activities we make it known that you can use it for both genders and that we should allow them to explore together and learn about their spatial environment and not restrict them in any way unless it's due to safety. So you go with them if they had to go further into a more dangerous area. So our second activity is one that you could use in a classroom. So this is a movement map. So it allows children to draw maps of the space that they are in and then coordinate their movements to the map. So if you're in a classroom, the child would draw where their desks are in location to them and then the space they have to move around. And then they could coordinate what movements they want to make through the classroom by designating a symbol to equal different movements. So a twirl, squiggle could be a twirl, or a straight line could be skipping. And then once they understand those symbols, they write them down on their map in the order they want to do it. And then they would act it out in the class and adapt their map based on adjustments they need to make, such as if they decide they want to crawl under the table, and then when trying it they realize the table is too low, then they'd go back to their map and adjust it and change their viewpoint. So this might be hard to understand, so I have a picture. So this is an idea. So they could do that for twirl, hop, hop, and then we saw that map earlier. So it'd be that sort of map, but with this integrated into it. So they know that they'd be doing these movements around the room in a certain order, and then they'd make adaptations based on the environments and restrictions.
And so to scaffold that, you could provide a map. You know, this is the table in the front, here are our desks, and you have this on a piece of paper, and then the children could come up with the movements. And you would, have them come up with a symbol, and you can help them at first. or even before that, you can hide a special thing under some seat or desk or somewhere in the room. You can mark on the map with an X and say there's a treasure there. If you can figure out where in this room that treasure is by looking at this map, you can go find it. And of course you'll have to do that 100 times because they'll want to do, they'll all want to have a turn. But so then when you get to this point where they can do this, you know, you're moving it to a more symbolic kind of level. So what is the shape of this room that we're in, approximately? Parallel. Yeah, it's it's almost like a pie piece, but it has the point cut off. All right. Seashell. So keep that in mind.
Okay. So we're going to be doing a task now. I have put papers along the sides of the room, and I'd like you to join into groups and draw this room, and then make a movement map of different movements that you could do around your room. And then brave volunteers will share with the group their movement map.
And if you draw movements through the middle of the room, somebody's going to have to climb over all these chairs, right? So think about it. Yeah.
Okay. And the crayons are right next to each of the papers.
We may need to move it down a little on the wall, or we can use this space if it's too crowded. So at the bottom, can you put a key? This symbol means this movement. That'd be great.
Okay, we'll do that for jumping.
We're going to do a fun activity. I want everyone to rotate one to the right, so one more to the right. So this group will be moving this way, and that last one will be moving that way. So we're basically going a little circle, and you're going to act out the other person's map that you get to.
You gotta go that way.
Yes, you're going that way. You guys are moving one down to theirs. It's going in a circle, so then they move that way.
Move around the room with those movements according to that map.
So please act out the map, move around the room.
So see if one of you all or all of you all can move around the room following their map. Or part way around the room. They're working on it still. Oh, walking backward, I like that.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, you're dividing it up. That's a good idea. We don't have equipment here to do this. No, it is hard. It is an unusual room to try to do this, but you get the idea. Yeah. Okay, folks, so we can make it back to our chairs.
Do you want to quickly do this one? And then you guys go back? Like good try? Yeah. Exactly. We'll start with you.
All right, folks, it's time to have a seat. I'm going to take your picture, Jenna.
Everyone have a seat.
Yeah, I'm going to have your picture. I'll wait till. Great skipping.
Okay, I did it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Sorry, can we hear everybody back? Yes.
Hopefully you had a chance to see at least one other movement map, but as you are walking around and as you go, you can look at others as well.
Can anyone share how that experience felt for them?
let's wait a moment.
Thank you guys for so enthusiastically completing your maps. All right, we have a question. Can anyone tell me how that felt? How was it drawing the map, and how was it acting out someone else's movement map?
That was fun.
It woke you up. We should have started with that. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
It was a little intimidating at first. Like I had to wrap my head around the concept of it. But, you know, and then thinking about this complex shape of the room, so it was a little intimidating, but once the artist started outlining the actual classroom, then it sort of came together.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Has anyone used movement maps before in their lesson plans? Or is this a new concept for everyone? You have? And how's it worked for you?
It works very well, especially since we have children who they have no language.
Right.
And what age do you work with him?
We have children from 6 weeks old. It's like 8 years old.
Okay. Yeah. So a range. So you can scaffold it to whatever extent you need to. If you need to provide the outline of the room and some of the furniture, that's fine. They do the movements, that's fine. If you need to put movements on the map to start with, that's fine. If you just need them to move from one side to the other to start with, you can do that. Like, I think we would have been pretty dizzy doing that one because there were about 17 twirls on that one, but the kids would probably love it. So, yeah. I mean, I really appreciated all the different movements that you all put on your maps. We don't want to keep you late. Questions, comments, concerns, poetry?
Too late for poetry.
It just reminded me, I was watching my kids play red light, green light, yellow light the other day, and thinking about Mother May I and how we used to play that when we were little outside. The same.
And movement maps are great for outdoors.
Yeah.
That's what it was like.
Not to mention good for getting kids moving. Kids need to be moving a lot. Thank you so much for hanging in with us at the last part of the day. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for viewing this content. You can now press the blue arrow, which allows you to complete a few more questions for the evaluation part of this session. Once you are finished with those questions and press the final blue arrow, your DCDEE training certificate should appear. At that point, we encourage you to right-click and save the certificate if you're using a PC or laptop, or you can also screenshot it if you're using a tablet or phone. Once you have submitted the evaluation, you will receive a confirmation email from us, and your certificate will also be in that email. Of course, if there are any challenges along the way with technology, do not hesitate to reach out to us at equipped@uncg.edu. You can email us and we will respond back and give you the certificate if needed. Thank you again. Thank you for viewing this recorded content from Equipped. We encourage you to visit our website at equipped.info to learn more about how Equipped supports and encourages early childhood professionals in Guilford County. Thank you.